Briahna Joy Gray and Noam Chomsky and Virgil Texas fighting and low society with Caleb Maupin, and it's just too much. I just want everybody to get along. All right, so girlfriend's been out of town, so I've been watching these really long videos. Watched a couple of debates from this channel, Modern Day Debate. Cool idea. I very much support it. Supposed to be a neutral platform, and their moderator seems to really stick to that. Got me thinking about a lot of like communication topics, communication in general, a topic that's obviously of great interest to the likes of me, communicator extraordinaire, Hoss Bossman. I don't know if I've said that yet, but that is my fake name, Hoss Bossman, and this is Breadsheet. Breadsheet. So I'm a total weirdo, I know, but I've always liked watching debates, the Oxford style, more formal ones, and everything in between that, and two people yelling at each other on a street corner. Participating in them makes me very nervous. I mean, I can barely sustain a friendly conversation on mic, but they're very, very interesting to watch. Y'all who travel in online leftist circles should be familiar with Briahna Joy Gray's locking of horns with Noam Chomsky over whether vote blue no matter who is the best strategy for the left at the moment.
What are the long-term consequences of everybody on the broad left, Democrats, liberals, everyone, saying that under any circumstances, we will vote for a Democratic candidate as long as they are incrementally better than the Republican candidate? Does that way of thinking contribute to the rightward shift of the Democratic Party over years? And what mechanism will ever stop that shift if we're not willing to ever, under any circumstances, leverage our votes?
What you're saying, if you think it through, is we should help Trump win because maybe in the long run, that'll affect the Democratic Party. That's a terrible choice. Helping Trump win, as you're proposing, would mean 4 more years of destruction of the environment, getting possibly to tipping points, which would be irreversible, certainly making any effort to deal with it very difficult. It would mean stacking the judiciary with young, ultra-right lawyers, top to bottom, so that nothing would be possibly done for a generation, and I can go on and on. I don't think that's a wise choice, just on the hope that maybe sometime in the long term, the Democratic Party will pay attention to the fact that you're part of the 50% of non-voters.
I take the multi-generational threat very seriously. As a Black American whose family members have been living as a third tier in American society. My mother was born into an America that didn't recognize her basic human rights. In 1960, she's a relatively young woman. And so what concerns me is the way in which the vote blue no matter who mindset basically privileges more recent concerns that are equally grave as more long-standing concerns that are built in the status quo, and says we have to vote for X candidate to prevent X ill from happening. At the same time, those who have suffered under the status quo never seem to get an opportunity to have their issues heard.
That's a big question that maybe I'll get into more on the next mini-sode. Suffice it to say, I agree with Chomsky that we need to vote for Biden, damage control, but I also think that Briahna Joy Gray's points are totally valid, and my main takeaway from that little interchange was I just thought it was beautiful to see the new generation of leftists challenge and push an elder statesman like Chomsky on what is an actual intellectually and morally complex question. And I'd like to think that somewhere in his literally infinity old brain that somehow still seems to be operating at like 98, 99% capacity, better than my little brain, I'd like to think that Chomsky was glad to see Gray's unwillingness to blindly accept his view as a good thing. He's as old as the hills, as C might say, but he built an indispensable foundation for this new left movement to build upon. And I hope he feels that passing the mantle to someone like Gray, people like Gray, whom I have the utmost respect and admiration for, I hope he feels that he's leaving this modern leftist movement he helped build, and that he was at times for the last 60, 70 years a very lonely and vulnerable voice in good hands. I'd like to think that he's thinking that on some level, and I think that he is. I'm somewhat optimistic. But, that's an actual difficult question that warrants rigorous debate. I think the thing that they were kind of butting heads over, if you don't know what I'm talking about, look it up. Briahna Joy Gray and Noam Chomsky. It was fiery and spicy, and I think a beautiful thing. I didn't like a lot of the responses to it, but anyway, I think we have the diversity of thought on the left to confront those debates in healthy and productive ways, despite a lot of the discouraging infighting we've been seeing, especially since the Bernie campaign folded and left us without our daddy to keep us together. I am still cautiously optimistic. Okay, that was a tangent. Back to the two types of debates I like to listen to or watch. Here's the deal. Interesting ones: UBI, friend or foe, social democracy versus full-on socialism, fire, friend or foe. I think I'm stealing that one from my boy John, or maybe my boy Brandon. I don't know if they want me to say their last names, but remember that was one of our ideas for a topic to do when we wanted to do a radio show back at Young Harris. I'm going to start having both of them on soon, them my boys. The debates I was watching these past couple days satisfy a completely different type of curiosity in me, as opposed to an actually intellectually interesting, difficult, complex question. How could anyone possibly sustain arguing for that side for that long? That's the last couple debates I watched. That was what interested me about them. I watched Vosh, a streamer leftist debate bro who often annoys me but is real good at debating and has some smart brains, versus some German climate change denying weirdo wacko. And that was fun, kind of interesting. Then I watched friend of the show, Ben Burgis, debate this Trump supporter guy who calls himself Mr. Reagan. Which, I promise I'm zeroing in on a point right now. One big point of contention from the jump in the great Burgis versus Reagan debate, which I recommend watching if you can spare a couple hours, just because it is fascinating to watch somebody at this point trying to defend Donald Trump. One big point of contention from the jump in that debate was whether the debate was Burgis versus Reagan. Sorry, I'm all over the place. This was a 2-hour debate on Modern Day Debate is the channel. It's also on Ben Burgis's channel. Go check it out on his channel. Support him and support them too. Watch it both at the same time, simultaneously. See if you can sync them up. And so this was Burgis versus Mr. Reagan. Again, that's weird to me. But it was Biden versus Trump. It was over whether people should vote for Biden or Trump in 3 weeks or however soon the election is, which, by the way, that's what the breaking take is about at the end of the episode. I feel obligated to say that Ben Burgis did everything he could to try and help get Bernie the nomination, but now is arguing for Biden to, stop the bleeding, triage, as I very much agree with. Trump has caused a lot of damage, and 4 more years, who knows what could happen. We may never get a chance to vote again with 4 more years of Trump. I honestly believe that is a possibility. But this Mr. Reagan dingus kept saying that asymptomatic transmission of COVID-19, meaning the ability to spread the disease without expressing any symptoms, is, quote, very rare. He kept saying that asymptomatic transmission is very rare according to the CDC. So both Burgis and Reagan had computers in front of them, which is good in an absurd debate like this with so many lies flying from the pro-Trump side. So Ben Burgis, old Benny Bergs, he looked up what the CDC is currently saying about it, and the number was 40%. 40%, it's estimated that 40% of transmissions are asymptomatic. And that is not very rare. At least to you, 40% should not be anywhere close to very rare. So Burgis says the CDC's estimate is that 40% of COVID's transmission is asymptomatic. The dum-dum he's debating keeps flat out denying the 40% figure, saying the CDC is lying, repeating this phrase, very rare. Now, in the midst of the debate, I understand why old Benny Bergs didn't go in depth with this, but I think what my bit of research turned up and the conclusions it led me to are pretty telling. Basically, it looks like a single person from the World Health Organization made an offhand remark back in May or June using that exact phrasing, asymptomatic transmission could be, quote, very rare, then backtracked on it like a week later and said there wasn't enough research or data to know yet. But at that point, it was too late. The weirdos who are apparently planning to go down with the proverbial ship to die on the hill of defending the worst, or at the very least, the most incompetent president we've ever had. I think there's an argument to be made that Trump isn't the worst because he's so ineffective in so many ways, but definitely the dumbest president in American history. The people still defending him have a vested interest in spreading misinformation like this, and they latch onto this one phrase one person said months ago, and it's effective because most people won't look into it, which allows this ding-dong to shamelessly lie throughout the debate. But also, if someone does decide to do quote-unquote research, heavy air quotes there, if you Google asymptomatic transmission very rare, those 4 words, and are dumb enough to still be defending Trump, you'll look at the first 2... I'm sorry, that's mean, but come on. You'll look... If you see the first 2 headlines that come up in the search results, you probably think that they confirm your very, very incorrect and dangerous beliefs. But if you just look a tiny bit into it, I'm not some expert researcher or anything, but if you just think about it for 2 seconds and look at the dates and read real sources, you will be disabused of this very dangerous belief. Okay, so I'm getting a little worked up here, but Trump supporters, I love you. I'm sorry. I understand your frustration. I feel you. I'm sorry I called you dumb. You're just misled. The world's a scary, confusing place, and you've just been sucked into non-solutions to your problems. Like, you're just supporting things that are going to make the problems that you think are being solved worse, and you're alienating like a whole bunch of people in the process and being really mean. And, if you ever come to your senses, you're really going to regret this. But anyway, there's really no shame in it, though. You have everything working against you actually confronting reality. I mean, the right wing is a very powerful, the American right wing, it's a very powerful propaganda machine. Propaganda, marketing, modern marketing was invented in America. So, this stuff it's insidious. I'm sorry, I know this is like condescending, but please, if you're a Trump supporter, don't tune out. I really do just want to make the world a better place. Yes, even for you too. I want us to just hold hands and dance in a circle and drop petals on each other's faces. Okay. Anyway, let's disjumble those for next mini-sode. We're gonna do fun Halloween stuff. I don't think I'm gonna be changing anything leading up to the election. I think the real work, no matter who wins, Trump or Biden, the real work is gonna start after the November election. Yeah, there's a somewhat important election coming up you might have heard about, but gosh darn it, I'm gonna have some Hallows Eve fun before the world probably ends around that time. Follow me at Hoss_Bossman on Twitter and Instagram. Also, please support me on Patreon at patreon.com/Hoss_Bossman. Go to www.hoss.fun and my YouTube channel too. Lots of stuff there.